For the third time in 4 weeks, we come in on a Monday morning and we talk about the crime in Kansas City, Missouri, and what an embarrassing, utter mess it is right now. 6:05, glad you're here on KCMO Talk Radio. So as you heard John Anthony just mention there in the top of the hour news, this homicide right outside a Power and Light district early on Sunday morning has stolen headlines in Kansas City. And as we sit here less than a year away from hosting the biggest sporting event on the planet, the World Cup, this town is not close to ready. Nothing in Kansas City right now is in any way prepared for the influx of thousands of people who are coming here, will be staying downtown in our hotels, will be trying to live their life, have some kind of a semblance of a nightlife, with the violent crime out of control in prominent parts of our city. This is not, another homicide on the east side on a block that nobody ever goes to and nobody could point out on a map. I'm not downplaying those, don't get me wrong. Every loss of life is a bad one in Kansas City. But let's be honest, let's just be totally honest. When you have violent crime happening in high traffic parts of Kansas City, that folks from all over town can think, oh, yeah, I've been in that parking lot. Oh, yeah, I've been on that street corner. Oh, yeah, I walked right by where 2 people were shot and killed over the weekend. When you have a large percentage of Kansas City that can sit there and visualize themselves being in that exact location, which I can at 13th and Grand, and I know most of you listening right now can picture yourself standing at 13th and Grand outside of this parking lot where gunfire erupted at about 3:30 yesterday morning with 2 people dead, 3 others injured, and you have a couple other folks who are in critical condition as well. You sit there and you say to yourself, man, what is going on? How are we possibly going to get this under control? Because it's continuing to ramp up at a pace worse than last year. We're at 102 homicides in Kansas City. At this time last year, we were sitting at 100. And last year, yes, was a major downtick from 2023, but we are way past where we should be on these violent crimes, especially homicides in Kansas City, Missouri. Mayor Lucas comes on this show every single week. He's the mayor of Kansas City. He's been doing this since 2019. He gave a campaign promise 6 years ago that was to get the homicides under 100. Now, he didn't say under 100 by July 4th every year. He said under 100 for the year. And for the first couple of years of his term, I defended him. I said, listen, you're not going to turn this stuff around overnight. You're not going to be able to take the homicide number from 140, 150, 160 and get it down to 100 just because the new guy shows up. It's not how it works, right? It's never how it works. But now as we sit here, 6 years later, we're over 100. There's no sign we're really slowing down. There's no answers from anybody at this point. We don't have a jail. We're still sitting here saying, what's going on with the jail? And the answer is not much. The answer is no one really knows what's going on with the jail. I mean, I asked the mayor about this on the show last week, and there was nothing there.
We don't. It is, and I frankly will show some frustration on 2 different issues in Kansas City right now: the new jail and resurfacing of Broadway. There is an RFP that's out right now. I believe we have responses. I'm not sure what's happening here. I do know that there's the temporary jail chat. There's the 8th floor chat. We're so frozen in the kind of different parts of what part of jails we're going to have that the whole build the thing is actually slowed down.
That's a long way to say the jail's not close to being done. No one has a timeline, and it is government at its best, or more like government at its worst. That's the long and short of it there. So now as we sit here about 11 months away from the World Cup, you tell me at 913-408-7957, is there any evidence to suggest that this town is ready, is properly prepared. I see leaders doing cartwheels over having the streetcar extension finished down to UMKC. I mean, it's a joke.
Nobody cares.
Can people go out to dinner and not get shot? Can we start there? And if you think that's too aggressive, if you think that's too much, I mean, you had people who were visiting Kansas City over the weekend, staying downtown, talking to local media like Fox 4 and saying this.
Safety is now top of mind for one visitor spending several days in downtown Kansas City.
I'm literally walking down to go get some dinner, and I'm staying at a hotel just up the block. So, yeah, it makes me think twice about what I want to do or where to go, or maybe I should order in now.
Yep. At some point, you know what's got to happen here, too? And I've said this for a long time. Business owners have to grow a pair. You know who else needs to do that? Where's the Chamber of Commerce? Where's the Restaurant Association? I mean, it's hard enough being in that business right now, given the cost increases, given the uncertainty of the labor force. There's a lot of questions and concerns right now in that industry. Where's the Restaurant Association in any of this? You got guys, visiting Kansas City, talking to local media and saying, yeah, I think I'll order in. What does that mean for future weeks, months, and years to come in downtown Kansas City? How do you expect to grow your business? Now, you might sit there and say, well, it's 3:30 in the morning. Nothing good happens after midnight. I'm not in parking lots at 3:30 in the morning. I'm typically not either, except for, sometimes on the early side. Sometimes with this job, you're there at 3:30 in the morning because of what we do for a living. But that's not the point. This is not a one-off. Right? This is not like, wow, I can't believe this happened. It's the third time we've come in here on a Monday morning in the last 4 weeks and had to talk about a weekend that was filled with violent crime. Third time in the last 4 weeks. We've had juveniles involved in killings. We've had double homicides. We've had all these issues on these weekends the last few weeks that we've had to come in here on a Monday morning, and it's been our lead story. And here we are once again. And now you're talking about a prime time location of Kansas City sitting there at 13th and Grand. And now you got to look at that college basketball Hall of Fame, and there's bullet holes in the side of the building next to T-Mobile. I mean, that was reported on local news. Walk by T-Mobile today if you're going downtown, if you got a reason to be down there, and you got the college basketball experience that now has bullet holes in the side of the building. What does that look like for Kansas City? On the text line, 913-408-7957. Pete, and don't forget the business owners down in Brookside, like Sean Brady, can't take out his own trash at work without getting killed. Yeah, I mean, that, of course, is about a year removed. That was almost a year ago to the day from happening down in Brookside. So we continue to have these prominent and really dangerous situations unfolding in parts of town. And nobody in charge has an answer. Instead, it's like, let's talk to the Washington Post and CBS about how Orange Man bad. Are you freaking kidding me with that? Nathan Willett is a Kansas City councilman in the Northland. He is going to be on the show at 7:30 this morning on KCMO Talk Radio. You do not want to miss that. If you're at the office by then, make sure you stream it on the iHeart app. So that way you can hear what he has to say coming up in about an hour and 15 minutes here on KCMO Talk Radio. And as some of you are saying right now on the text line, Pete, can Trump send his National Guard here to Kansas City? You know what? I'm going to reach out today to people at the administration and say, send them in. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not saying it's going to work, but Trump keeps talking about, Baltimore, New York. It's like, brother, you don't realize how bad it is in some of these Midwest cities. Get them out here. Bring them out. I'm going to reach out today. You already tried Operation Legend here in Kansas City. You know what? Let's get it going, man. Let's go. We'll be ready for you, John.
Yeah, Trump has already set, he moved the World Cup draw to D.C., or said it's going to be there, so he's cleaned up D.C., so he should focus on the World Cup cities next.
I would love
which
that.
I believe Chicago is one and New York as well.
Yeah, send them in, man.
And that would include Kansas City, obviously.
Let's go. Let's get on that short list. I'm all in. Because ahead of that World Cup next year, man, things better be a lot better. If not, we could be making headlines for all the wrong reasons. At 6:15 on a Monday morning, glad you're here on KCMO Talk Radio. Speaking of brawling and fighting and violence, well, there was some violence overseas involving prominent folks in our region. We'll tell you who and what happened coming up next. Mark, stop laughing, okay? I got to tell the story. Coming up next on KCMO. Well, we go from violent crime in Kansas City to just buffoonery in Ireland. If you missed it over the weekend, if you're a Kansas State fan and you were in Dublin for the Iowa State game, maybe you're back here in the States, back here in the Kansas City area, and I hope your body clock has started to reset. That is a long flight home after the way that game went on Saturday. But we're not going to dive into that. What we will get into is what became the viral moment that was actually leading the New York Post's website last night. And that is Kansas State quarterback Avery Johnson's dad getting into a fistfight with Avery Johnson's older brother, his other son, after the game in Ireland, which Kansas State lost to Iowa State 24-21. This is what it sounded like as these two were seen brawling in a now viral video in basically a puddle outside the stadium. Wow, is that embarrassing? You have a father, and if you haven't seen the video, Avery Johnson's father, the star quarterback at Kansas State, is literally on top of his other son, nearly in a puddle, somewhere outside the stadium, tackling him, fighting over the game. I mean, I know, Guinness will do weird things to people, but this is next level, bro.
I think the brother looked like he was more nervous about getting his shoes dirty than actually getting hurt from his dad. But
well, that's probably true, too. But I'm looking at this video, and I'm like, this is pathetic. Pathetic. Now, I've got 3 daughters, so obviously it's different when you have sons versus daughters. Listen, I got pinned against the wall once or twice in my childhood. Nothing like, super physical or violent or anything like that, but, just a little wake-up call. Which when you got sons, I think that's okay. I don't have sons, so that's not something I'll be experiencing. But if you have boys, it's okay. That's sometimes how boys respond, John.
I have to do that as the grandfather. Remind Mimi, she raised daughters. I raised boys. I got no idea on girls, but I got every idea on boys, and you are correct, sir.
Yes. I lived it firsthand as one of 3 boys. But now being the father of daughters, I'm like, this is a whole new ball game, man. You got to handle this stuff differently. That being said, taking your grown son and trying to tackle him into a puddle outside of a college football game where your other son is the star quarterback who just lost, my gosh, what are you doing to the kid, for crying out loud? This is pathetic.
Wait till that shows up on his Facebook memory, right?
Oh, my gosh. I'm pretty sure that the entire Avery Johnson family, including every Kansas State fan, wants to forget this game ever happened based on how it went on Saturday.
So I was out at the booth over there at KU in Lawrence, and that video was starting to circulate through the press, the media box, and it was just like, everyone's like, oh, did you see this? It was going crazy.
Oh, gosh. Oh, man. I do want to get to that, Mark. But first, let me read the statement here from Mark and Anthony Johnson, Avery Johnson, the K-State quarterback's dad and brother. They put out a statement yesterday saying, "We sincerely apologize for our actions following yesterday's football game in Ireland. Senseless bickering escalated into an unnecessary fight. We've resolved our differences and take full responsibility for our actions." Well, I'm glad the father and son resolved their differences that led to them brawling outside of a football game that their brother was playing in. "We've apologized to our immediate and extended family and now extend our apologies to Kansas State University, its alumni and fans. We regret this incident, have learned from it, and are committed to ensuring it does not happen again. Please accept our deepest apologies." Yeah, I promise, when they play North Dakota this weekend, they won't be beating each other up in the parking lot. Wow. Stand up, guys. Way to go. How about a slow clap for Avery Johnson's dad and brother? Thank you. Thank you very much. Wow. That is freaking pathetic. Pathetic. If I'm Kansas State, I'm like, you guys just, if you don't mind, stay home for this game this weekend. They're Kansas folks. He grew up here in Kansas. He's a Kansas kid. And between the way the game went on Saturday, another loss to Iowa State for Chris Kleiman, KU looked great. I know it's Fresno State, but still, KU looked great. And now you got the star quarterback's dad and brother going viral for brawling outside of the game in Ireland. Wow, that is brutal. You could not have a worse start to the season for Kansas State if you tried. Now, Mark, you were out there at the new booth over the weekend following and covering KU as they opened up against Fresno State. And give me the rundown. Your experience, the look. I know it's only half the stadium, but how did it look? How did it come off?
Yeah, I stayed on the new half most of the time, but it looked really awesome. The fans, it was a sold-out crowd. The energy, the excitement, it was just something that I had not seen. I've only been to probably a handful of games there, but I haven't seen anything like that.
That's damn impressive. It looked good
on TV.
It looked great on TV.
Yeah.
I was really impressed. Now, you bumped into Brian Haney, voice of the Jayhawks, who was in studio on Friday.
Yes, our feature Friday guest. Great guy. Shook my hand, said, have a great time tonight. It's a great day to be a Jayhawk. That's his line, I think, but...
Now,
awesome.
is it true that he didn't recognize you without a hat at first?
See, I'm not sure. He kind of had that look like, all right, who is this guy? I know this guy, but where do I know him from? So then I said, hey, thanks for coming on the show with Pete the other day. And then he kind of had the click moment.
There you go. Smooth.
That's smooth. Good job by you there, Mark. I'm telling you, no one recognizes you when you don't have a hat on. I saw
true.
A picture of you out at the game. I'm like, I didn't even notice it was you, and I know you. I look at you every day for 4 hours here. I was like, who's this guy? Oh, that's Mark.
It's when the whole thing is done, it's just going to be so cool. Like, the students still have to, they don't have the Wi-Fi over there on that side of the stadium yet, which is kind of funny. But, once everything is all done, the game day experience is just going to be so cool out there. It already is cool, but it's going to be even better.
And now you got $300 million from David Booth. It is a definitely good times in Lawrence, and the team looked great on Saturday, too.
And David Booth was out there.
Oh, was he?
Maybe got the biggest applause of the day.
Oh, well, if there's anyone who deserves an applause right now in Lawrence, it's freaking David Booth. My gosh, $300 million, the least the guy can do is get an applause. Okay. All right, very good. Very well done there. I was watching my good buddy Nick Haynes on Kansas City PBS. He does a great job there with their Week in Review show. I was not on there over the weekend, but I enjoy watching it no matter what. They do a good job covering the local news. But the panel always basically skews way to the left when I'm not on it, which is fine. I mean, Nick's got to do what he's got to do. He's got a lot of mouths to feed, so to speak, and I never bother him. He knows how to get a hold of me if he needs me. But they were talking about the redistricting coming to Missouri. And my gosh, people should have taken out the box of Kleenex for some of these panelists. They were real upset that Missouri is potentially about to go from a 6-2 Republican-Democrat congressional map to 7-1. And it's all but certain it's going to happen. Mike Kehoe is just slow-rolling this whole thing. But everybody I talked to in Jeff City is adamant that it's going to happen. He's just not announcing it because he doesn't want to really deal with the backlash any earlier than he needs to. And, for a long time I've said I don't know about this. I'm not really a fan of it. I worry it would cause more swing districts in Missouri than it's worth. Right now you've got 6 locked Republican seats. If you push for 7-1, you could end up in a bad year in a 5-3 map. But J.D. Vance was on Meet the Press over the weekend, and I thought he laid out the best argument for any of this. The vice president was talking to Kristen Welker, and he explained why states like Texas and also potentially states like Florida and now here in Missouri may end up doing some redistricting. And this case by J.D. Vance was very salient and is one that when Mike Kehoe makes the announcement that they're going to a special session, he should use as well.
We had way fewer House seats than we should have. 1, if the Democrats hadn't aggressively gerrymandered, and 2, if illegal aliens weren't counted in the census for purposes of apportioning congressional seats. The best estimates I've seen is that in California, for example, has 5 additional congressional seats than it should have because they count illegal aliens for the purpose of apportioning representatives. Meanwhile, Ohio, my home state, lost a representative. We're literally losing representatives for American citizens in order to give congressional representation to illegal aliens. Republicans are trying to balance out the scales a little bit for basic fairness and for the integrity of our democracy, which the president cares about as much as anybody in the country.
So between the gerrymandered blue states and then also the fact that there are too many congressional seats and as a result electoral votes in blue seats because they count persons, not citizens, that's a great case that J.D. Vance laid out there. When you talk about that kind of a 1-2 punch, when you say, well, our opponents have heavily gerrymandered their states, and already they have more congressional districts than they should have because the census counts persons, not citizens. So as a result, there are citizens in other states who are not getting the representation they deserve because you have places like California and Illinois and New York that have too many congressional districts because we're counting non-citizens in the census. Suddenly it's like, okay, all right. I mean, it's very hard to sit there if you're against this and be like, but it's like, no, you really don't have a leg to stand on. As much as I've sat here for the last 3 weeks and said I'm not necessarily a fan of it, you can't really argue against it based on the argument J.D. Vance just laid out there, right? And that is something that whether it's Mike Kehoe or it's a future Kansas governor, and now we're starting to hear there are some rumors on the Kansas side of the state line that they may try to redistrict Sharice Davids out of a seat. I don't know how they'll do it. They'd have to split up Johnson County in some kind of weird gerrymandered way. Let's be clear, it would be gerrymandering. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. But I started hearing things over the weekend that Kansas could be looking at something like this, John.
Sheesh, better the devil you know. I mean, they redistrict her and she got more votes. Right?
I know.
Got popular.
I know. That's the weird thing. Let's be honest. In 2020, they redrew her district to try to make it easier for Republicans to win. And she kept cleaning their clocks. She did better. What does that tell you about the Kansas Republicans and the job they did?
They don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
I mean, clearly, these guys and gals are like, we're going to show Sharice. We're going to give her Franklin County and a couple other counties, all of Miami County, and she wins by more. Now, maybe that says a lot about the candidates she was going up against as well, as much as anything else, but still, that was a bad look for the state of Kansas. So that was J.D. Vance laying out the blueprint for Mike Kehoe over the weekend and then potentially on the Kansas side as well. Now, speaking of the Sunday shows, Keatsman was just rolling at this Trump post last night that he sent around. So Trump, they post all these truth socials that he puts up on social media to other social media platforms. So Trump, I guess, was spending his Sunday watching some of the Sunday shows. I mean, at this point, it's like, brother, go play some golf, please. Do yourself a favor. Get out. Don't watch this garbage. It's mostly irrelevant. Nobody else is seeing it. I don't know why you're doing this to yourself, John.
You just cleaned up the place. Go out for a walk.
Exactly. Just get out, man. Go spend some time with Melania. Enjoy your life. Go talk to Barron. See if he's 7 foot tall.
I want to see a one-on-one, a game of horse with Barron.
That's exactly right. Instead, here's what he puts up on social media yesterday afternoon. Trump writes, I just watched sloppy Chris Christie be interviewed on rating-challenged news show this week with George Slopadopoulos on ABC Fake News.
Fake news.
By the way, what the hell happened to John Carl's hair? He looks absolutely terrible. It's amazing what bad ratings on a failed television show that was forced to pay me $16 million can do to one's appearance. Can anyone believe anything that sloppy Chris says? This is now back to Chris Christie. There's like 8 thoughts in a few sentences there, including some parentheses. He goes on the right here. Do you remember the way that Christie lied about the dangerous and deadly closure of the George Washington Bridge in order to stay out of prison? At the time, sacrificing people who worked for him, including a young mother who spent years trying to fight off the vicious charges against her. Chris refused to take responsibility for these criminal acts. For the sake of justice, perhaps we should start looking at this very serious situation again. All caps, no one is above the law. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President DJT. Boy, go out, take a walk, Mr. President. I say this with all the respect in the world, please. Nobody is thinking about Chris Christie, okay? Nobody right now in American politics. No one this weekend would have even come up with the name Chris Christie if you didn't highlight it in your social media post. Trust me, this is one person that we can universally agree on, left and right, that nobody cares about.
Nobody cares.
He is irrelevant. ABC wants to put him on because he's a paid contributor and he's got to do X amount of hits a year for him. That's their prerogative. But I promise you, that is not a name that the President of the United States needs to be worried about. But we do have to figure out John Karl's haircut because that thing is whacked out. He's right about that. And what did he call Stephanopoulos? I like the Snuffleupagus nickname, but Trump prefers to call him.
He doesn't like to wear them out. He'll move on.
Yeah, true. He liked Slopadopoulos.
That would crack me up when you read it.
Slopadopoulos. Oh, my gosh. Yep, that's the President of the United States. There you go. It's tough, though. It's hard when you got to keep trying to top your own material, right? I mean, you know a thing or two about that, John. It's not easy when the expectations keep getting raised.
Oh, he's got a million of them.
Yeah, that's true. He's just getting warmed up.
To it. It's lightning in a bottle.
Does he have enough for a third term, though? That's the question. Can he get there?
Oh, everybody's his material, so they give him plenty to work with.
Oh, that's true. That's true. So we've got Kansas City back in the headline news after homicides outside of Power and Light District over the weekend. It was early Sunday morning, as we've been telling you about here in the first hour plus of the show, that you had gunfire erupt. That resulted in KCPD responding, fire department responding, 2 people dying, 3 others injured, and potentially more to come because you have a juvenile involved who is in critical condition. It's an absolutely tragic situation. Third time in the last 4 weeks we've come in here on a Monday morning, and we've had to highlight the violent crime issues in Kansas City. Now, despite all that, you've got this national conversation happening, right, where the President of the United States has used National Guards troops to help out Washington, D.C. They're on a 10-day run without a homicide in Washington, D.C. They've seen a plummeting of their violent crime in the last couple of weeks since the President took over the Washington, D.C. Police Department and the National Guards troops were used on the streets of Washington, D.C. Who's possibly against any of this? It's absolutely insane. But for some reason, and I don't get the political calculation here for Mayor Lucas, who comes on this show every Thursday morning, but he has been a vocal critic of the administration doing what they're doing. He's been on cable news to talk about this, MSNBC. He's been quoted in the Washington Post talking about, hey, I don't know about Trump's strategy here. This is not the right move. And a lot of you reached out to me and you said yesterday on social media, why is Mayor Lucas going on these cable news shows? Why is he being quoted in the Washington Post about these stories? And my response is this. Why are these news outlets asking him? I'm not going to blame the mayor for giving the Washington Post a quote. I'm not going to blame him for going on CNN, for going on MSNBC and giving the anchors and the audience what they want, which is basically just anti-Trump fodder that gets them excited for a couple of minutes.
People are aroused. I haven't seen people so aroused in a very, very long time.
He's just super serving the audience is what he's doing. But the better question is, who's in charge of these shows? Who's in charge of these newspaper outlets? right? Like, that's the bigger question. If you're looking to put somebody on your television channel, if you're looking to quote somebody in your newspaper about how Trump should not be helping out with violent crime in Washington, D.C., well, I don't think you should be asking somebody who's been the mayor of a city for 6 years and has only seen the homicide numbers go up. That's where I put the blame. If they're not going to do their homework, I don't blame the mayor for going on TV and getting himself a little publicity if they want to fluff him up. I don't blame him for giving a quote to the Washington Post. I'm like, who's in charge of making these bookings? Right? Like, you wouldn't ask Joy Behar how to go about losing weight. Okay? You wouldn't do that. You try to find people who have proven they are experts in whatever it is you want to talk about and you want to have covered. Some of you wanted a Whoopi Goldberg reference there. Fine. Pick your favorite View anchor. Whatever you want to do is up to you, okay?
Yeah.
But you get the point. It's not on him to say, nope, my homicide rate's too high. I can't go on CNN. It's on CNN to say, I don't know if it makes a lot of sense for a guy who has really struggled with the homicides in his own city to come on here and knock Trump, who's going on and helping out Washington, D.C. And by the way, they have seen their violent crime stats plummeting in recent weeks, John.
Yeah, the show's producers go out there and they shop for the opinion they want to hear.
Yes, that's right? What they do, yes.
You know, and who's better at filling up time than our man, the Q?
Well, that's true, too. Right? That's a good point.
You know, they sit there and got 2 minutes. Stretch it out.
Yeah.
Stretch it. Nope, no problem. Right?
That I can do for you.
Yeah. So, but the other thing is maybe people start to see him. It's raising his profile in the party because they need some help.
Well, they desperately do. There's no doubt about that. And that's why I'm not going to sit here and rag on him. He's just taking the media time and he's running with it. He's got every right to do that. But then you have J.D. Vance, and J.D. Vance is the vice president. He was on Meet the Press over the weekend, and he had a message to Washington, D.C., and to Kansas City, and to every major American city dealing with too much violent crime right now. And this was a little bit of an insight into what exactly the political calculation is here by this administration on this specific issue, fighting violent crime. It's starting right now in D.C., and it could be coming to Chicago and some other major American cities soon as well with National Guard's help.
We don't have to live like this. My message to my fellow citizens here in D.C. or all across the country would be that allowing vagrants and armed robberies to take over your city, that's a policy choice. What President Trump is showing is that if you just empower local law enforcement to arrest and prosecute the bad guys, we can take back American streets. You, as a young family, whatever the color of your skin, you should not have to cross the street because there's a crazy person yelling at your children on the other side. You should not be worried that if you take your son out for a meal at 8 o'clock in the evening, an armed robber is going to assault your family. This is a policy choice to allow lawlessness to overrun our cities. The president has made a different policy choice. And I think what he's showing the entire American community is that we don't have to live like this. And that's the biggest thing that will come out of D.C. It matters a lot for D.C., but I think it matters more for the whole country to see that if we just make better choices, we can take back our cities.
It matters a lot for D.C., says J.D. Vance, but it matters a whole lot more for the rest of the country. That's J.D. Vance saying, yes, what we're doing is good for D.C., it's good for public safety, but they're literally making a pitch to urban cores around America when they say, you don't have to live like this. This is not really all that difficult. You support your cops. You support the men and women in blue. You have their back. You make sure they're fully staffed. You let them go out there. You let them do their jobs. And voila, you've got yourself a much safer situation. Don't overcomplicate this. I mean, yes, there are systemic issues that people always like to point out. But, you know, Kansas City had, 80 homicides in 2014? We're now averaging about double that over the last 5 years. Did those systemic issues get twice as worse in a decade? No. No, we lost cops. We lost trust in law enforcement. Law enforcement turned its back on the prosecutor's office in this town because they were more interested in prosecuting cops than criminals, right? City Hall didn't have the cops back. Hundreds retired, resigned, left early. You can't replace them. You got a slew of issues. And yeah, there are a couple of systemic problems that in a perfect world get fixed. But my goodness, the people that use that as an excuse are always pointing to it because it's a convenient way to be like, there's nothing we can do about this in the short term. It's going to take decades to fix this stuff. That's why they do it, because it gives them an out. It's an excuse for them. That's why they lean so heavily on the systemic issues, despite the fact that we see evidence all over the place over the last 30 years. I mean, you go back to Giuliani in New York. You can look at what's happening right now in D.C., which is that when you increase enforcement, your crime decreases. Nathan Willett is a Kansas City councilman. He is going to be here in 20 minutes to react to what happened downtown outside of Power and Light, where you had a couple of people shot and killed right at 13th and Grand. You have residents who are now talking to local media saying that woke up to these gunshots. You had people visiting Kansas City who are like, I'm not sure I'm going to go out tonight. They're talking to Fox 4 and some of the other TV stations. We'll hear from you at 913-408-7957. Yeah, this is not a battle that Gavin Newsom's going to win. The governor of California calling out Missouri in a social media post he popped up here. This was last night that Gavin Newsom, who's been going all in on social media, have you seen what he's been doing? He's got a staffer or staffers who are trying to write his posts on social media like Trump does, like all caps, exclamation points, random tangents in parentheses. But it's not funny. And I'm not just saying that because, like, he's not my guy. It's just not funny. That's the thing. It's true about Republicans, too. Republicans who try to act like Trump and mimic Trump just come off like losers. You either have it or you don't. And regardless of what you think of Trump, he's pretty darn funny. Like when he comes up with these quips in press conferences and he's going back and forth with the media, you cannot teach that. Either you have it or you don't. Either you're funny or you're not. Either you're quick or you're not. And you see Republicans, they try to like do their little Trump shtick, and it's like, guys, that's so flat. You just don't have it. All right. And knowing you don't have it is really important. And then if you're Gavin Newsom, it's like, I understand what you're going for here, man. But once again, it's just not genuine. And it's not all that funny. So he's been attacking a bunch of different Republicans. Now he's upset with the state of Missouri. He posts yesterday a picture of Oakland, California, and a picture of St. Louis. And inside of his picture of St. Louis is a goofy picture of Josh Hawley. And he writes here, facts you won't see on Fox News. St. Louis's murder rate is a staggering 190% higher than Oakland's. Do you think Fox will cover that? Well, as I retweeted from Guy Benson, who is on KCMO at 2 o'clock every afternoon, including today, Guy Benson responds with, the last Republican mayor of St. Louis left office in the 1940s. I mean, geez, Gavin, what are you going for here? Notice how he put a picture of Josh Hawley in there for St. Louis and not Kara Spencer, who's the actual mayor of St. Louis. Like, say what you want about Josh Hawley, but Josh Hawley's not running the St. Louis Police Department. He's not running crime in St. Louis. He's not the prosecutor for St. Louis. He's really got nothing to do with what's going on in St. Louis. It's like, dude, what are you doing?
As if either senator did. He didn't even get the right side of the state, right?
Yeah,
if you're going to do a senator, then you do Schmidt.
Point. That's a good point. At least Schmidt is from that side of the state,
right,
and Hawley is from this side of the state.
Yeah, I might have had a little bit of a tweak to it if they had it right.
That's an excellent point there, John. And then if you look at all of these major American cities based on homicide rates across America, St. Louis, Detroit, Memphis, Baltimore, Cleveland, D.C., New Orleans, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Chicago, Oakland, Milwaukee, Albuquerque, Kansas City at number 14, and Birmingham at number 15. The mayors of every single one of these cities have a D next to their name. Now, I am going to be fair here. at least I think I'll be fair here when I say this. It's not as simple as just saying, well, they obviously all have a D next to their name, therefore they're single-handedly the ones to blame. No, you can be a pro-cop, you can be a pro-law and order Democrat. I think they still exist in the real world. They don't exist in elected office, but they exist in the real world. Like, I really think that those voters are out there. I really think that those people exist. I think they exist here in Kansas City. They just don't end up in too many cases in elected office. They don't end up running anything. They're voters, they're real people, but they don't win primaries. And that's why, whether it's Gavin Newsom posting stuff like this or anybody else trying to somehow point the finger, whether it's what Trump's doing in D.C. or what's happening here in Kansas City. Guys, this is not the fight that you want to pick. It's not going to work out the way you think it's going to work out.
I was going to query whether you thought maybe Eric Adams was as close to your description as possible, but then when you get in office, you end up moderating, right?
Ideally, yeah.
Well,
ideally.
no, I'm saying he was a little more pro-cop. And he a former cop, or am I mistaken about his background?
Yes, he is a former cop. You're right.
Right. And so if anybody were going to speak up in a position, the mayor of New York would be in a position to do that, but he hasn't really been out there back in the blue.
He has not been as actively doing that as he should have been doing it. You're right, the last couple of years there, John. And as a result, they've obviously continued to have a slew of problems there. Now, they're not at the top homicide rates in the country, but just pure numbers, they're obviously always up there because of how big that city is with 8 million people. So now you look at what's going on here in Kansas City or in the state of Missouri, and it's like, man, if you want to look at Missouri and say, well, the problems with St. Louis and the problems with Kansas City are driven by the fact that you've got a red state, please. Okay, you look at these top cities, and the gun laws in all these states are very different. You've got Missouri, you've got Michigan, you've got California, you've got Illinois, Wisconsin, New Mexico. It's East Coast, it's West Coast, it's Middle America, it's North, it's South, it's red states, it's blue states. It's all of those things. One of the few common themes is the party of the leadership in the city itself. It's one of the few things you can point to and say, well, there's a commonality. And if you don't use those commonalities to come to a fair and obvious conclusion, I'm not sure I can help you. Whether it's Gavin Newsom or anybody else. 913-408-7957, 812 on a Monday. Stephen in Kansas City. What's up, Stephen?
Hey, man, we got to stop coaching these Democrats. Let them fall on their own merits. I'm loving this policy of let's get the National Guard in here to help facilitate the arrests. I mean, this is working. I don't know what's going on in the country or what's going on in the polling. I saw that Vivek Ramaswamy is up 10 points in Ohio for the governor's race. Man, people love this stuff. I mean, we're gonna win on this. Vivek is not exactly our greatest gubernatorial candidate in Ohio in a swing state, but something is going on where this message is getting through that you can have safe communities and you don't have to rely upon, Mayor Lucas. Don't help Mayor Lucas. He's going to lose his job anyway.
No, listen.
He can replace Frank White or something, but let's not coach these guys. Let's let them stand or fall on their own merits.
I'm here. Listen.
Daddy's home, and we're going to put the National Guard in here.
Daddy's home.
Daddy, you're my daddy.
Thank you very much for that, Stephen. I appreciate it. Listen, I'm not here to help or hurt anybody, okay? I'm not here to lobby or advocate for any party or candidate or anything like that. I show up, you know what I think, I'm giving you my opinion, and, you make of it what you want. But I'm not here to help any single person or group or anything like that. Trust me, there's plenty of days where Republicans can't get out of their own ways. But on this issue, it's not one that the Democrat Party is going to come out looking good with. It's just not. And it doesn't need to be this way. It does not need to be this way. This should be like everyone comes together and says, yes, we need to flood the zone. We need to get more cops on the streets. And because many major American cities are hemorrhaging police officers from the last few years, stemming from 2020, If the National Guard can help on that front, so be it. Let's go. 913-408-7957 is how you join us on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. That is our text line as well as we get it rolling here in the 8 o'clock hour. Pete, I'm wondering if Oakland's crime rate is down because the Raiders fans all moved to Vegas. Oh, gosh. All right. Now we're going there on a Monday morning. It's entirely possible. I don't know. But, I mean, if Gavin Newsom wants to compare Oakland to St. Louis, the one thing that those cities do have in common is their ability to lose sports teams left and right. That does seem to be something that they're both very good at. And hopefully we're not saying the same thing about Kansas City, but let's be honest. If you're John Sherman, owner of the Royals, you're waking up today, you're seeing the news from the weekend. Another homicide downtown, 2 homicides downtown, 13th and Grand. You were a vote away from potentially having a baseball stadium 5-6 blocks away. This new trend is getting a little weird. Real estate market, Wall Street Journal writing here that buyers are test driving homes with sleepovers. Yeah.
He's a cuckoo bird.
All right. So what's happening here is that, and this is starting at the various highest levels of real estate. This isn't necessarily happening, at your entry-level starter home of real estate. But they're talking, and you know how this stuff always goes. It always filters on down. But the story here is starting with the, multi-million-dollar estates in places like Newport Coast, California. Eric Albert listed his 11,000-square-foot home for $60 million. And the person who was interested in buying it wanted to stay there and do a sleepover. So they rented the house for $250,000 a month for 2 months to live in it for 2 months, and then decided, I'm going to pass on the house. Now, this guy nets $500,000 to basically move out of his own house for 2 months. But this is something that I could see growing in popularity in the housing market. And I think it's the most ridiculous thing ever. Where someone says, I really like your house. I'd really like to buy it, but you mind if I sleep in it for like a couple nights? Mark, you want some creep sleeping in your bed where you and your wife sleep every night, just giving your house a test ride?
No, that is super weird. I mean, this guy stayed, you said, for 2 months?
Yeah.
Obviously, this is just a rich guy.
Yes,
but
yes.
Man, that's crazy.
John, you in on this, man, or are you
I
passing?
am not. No.
Okay, all right.
No B&B for me, man.
Me neither. But it was a headline piece in the Wall Street Journal about how at the highest levels of real estate, people are now wanting to basically sleep in the house for a period of time to see whether or not the house is a fit. I mean, people do realize you move your own bed into a house, right?
I should say, yeah, dude, come on over, but I get up at 2:20. The alarm goes off. I got to do the news. So, I'm not moving out. You can stay over.
Yeah, you can crash on the couch for a little bit. You're in charge of the 12-pack every week, and we'll see how this goes.
That's right. Left side of the refrigerator's mine.
Yeah. If they're not from the area, maybe they can watch a tornado with you on the front porch.
Yeah, no, that'll cost you extra. John's going to charge for that to show you how to properly tornado watch from the front porch, right?
I got lawn chair or Chase Lounger. The Chase Lounger costs you a little more.
Oh, man. So the story goes on to note that, there are more with buyers becoming a little more powerful in this current market. Because for the first time in several years, we're actually seeing the buyers have a little more leverage than the sellers have had, which has been the case for the last few years. You're seeing people acquiesce on certain things and negotiate certain things. And you know what? If giving people a test run of your house with a sleepover is what's to come in the real estate market, well, I didn't have any plans to move. I'm not interested in moving, but I'm definitely not going anywhere now, John.
Right. You've seen, I can't remember the TV commercial, but these people are in their house and all of a sudden they hear all this yelling and commotion and it's goats next door that sound like kids playing.
Yeah.
And you're like, how did they not know they were moving in next to goats? Maybe this prevents things like that.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. There was one thing when we moved into our current house I wasn't aware of. And that was that there were basically trails. We don't have sidewalks in our neighborhood. We have trails behind the homes. So people walk up and down the trails, dogs, kids, and whatnot. And at first I was like, oh, no, this is going to freak me out. I'm going to have basically random people walking in my backyard. But it actually turns out to be quite communal. You see neighbors, you see people around the neighborhood. People don't really bother you. The worst part is my dog, Woody, sees someone out there and goes nuts every time he sees someone out the back window. But for the most part, it's been very communal. And I didn't notice it because we moved in and we bought the house in the winter time and it was covered with snow. So I didn't realize there was literally a walking trail in the neighborhood right behind my home, which at first I didn't like, but now it's been completely fine and I have no issue with it. But if you gotta sleep in a house for, several weeks potentially in some cases to figure out whether you like the house, it's not for you, okay?
No.
It's not for you. It's like anything else in life. If you got to think that hard about, like, going on a second date, the relationship is not for you. Just move on. Go to the next one. But this is one of those trends. I hope it stays at the highest levels of elite society, and the rest of us don't have to be bothered with this. The real estate market is screwed up enough. We don't need people sleeping in our beds
right,
to get a
next
test
thing
ride.
you know, you got Snooki in the situation and a big party at Kegger going on.
Could you imagine? I mean, seriously, there's some bad things that could come out of that. Oh, my goodness. Coming up on KCMO Talk Radio, something that one of our two states must do to copy the other one, and a lot of our surrounding states. We'll tell you what that is coming up next on 95.7 FM and streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app.